All right, this video I'm working on review number 1, the quadratic review number 1. And on this quadratic review number 1, I'm going to start with number 8. So this will help you study for your quiz. Is number 8 says find the equations of the parabolas below. And as you can see, I have two formulas to use. I have the zeros formula and the vertex formula. But because these have like all the points, I'm going to do them both for each one of them because we have all the information to show you that they're the same. Okay, so here's the first one. I'm going to do the zeros one because I have zeros there, and each one of these count for 1. So this 0 is 3, 0, and this 0 over here is -1, 0. So I'm going to use the zeros formula. So I got y equals a, so I'm going to just say zeros because I'm going to do both. Okay, a x minus box, x minus box. And when I do this and just throw in the -1 and 3, the -1 will go here and the 3 will go here. So now I have y equals a x plus 1 because it changes the sign, x minus 3 because it changes the sign. So I'm pretty good. And I know it opens upwards, so I know my a is positive, but I need another point. So when I always use another point, I always like to find a good point that I know is on the graph, and I look at this and I see at 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, -4 is the vertex. So let's use that point, and then we should come up with the formula. You could use the y-intercept as well, but we'll just use that 1, -4. This is an xy, so in this I have -4 equals a 1 plus 1. 1 minus 3. See how I put the 1 in both of those spots? So I have -4 equals a times 2 times -2. And now I know that -4 equals -4a. So I put the -4 in front of it. Divide by -4, a is 1. So my zeros form for this would be y equals, I don't need to show the 1. I'm happy about it because it's positive, but it's going to be x plus 1 times x minus 3. So you could stick the 1 here if you wanted to, but you don't need to. So there is the zeros form. Now I'm going to do the vertex form because I have the vertex too. And I wanted to show you get the same thing. If it doesn't look the same at first, but if you multiplied it out, it would be. All right. So the vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. And I want you guys to know the formula. Now what I'm going to do is plug in the vertex, which we already knew was this. So I'm going to plug in my vertex in this spot here. It changes sign, so the 1 is going to go here, and then I'm going to plug it in here, so that's -4. So I have y equals a x minus 1 squared minus 4. Now I'm going to plug in another point. Well, I can use one of the zeros, so I'm going to use 3, 0 because there's no negative, so I don't make a mistake. So 0 is for y, a is 3, and I plug it in. Now, don't make the mistake. I always told you this is a term in itself. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to write that 4 right in front of the a because I don't want to make a mistake when I solve it. Add 4 to both sides. So I have 4 equals 4a. Divide by 4, a is 1, which I'm happy about it because it should be a positive 1, or it should be positive because it's opening upwards. So now I have y equals a, which is 1, which I don't really need to show, x minus 1 squared minus 4. All right, so here is my zeros form. Here's my vertex form. And you're like, wait a minute, Ms. Pond, you said they would be the same. I'm going to tell you right now, if you multiplied this out and actually squared this and subtracted 4, you would end up, both of them would be the same. So I'm just letting you know, but they are both exact same parabola. So you could have picked either one because you have all the points to choose from. All right, we're going to do this again with this one right over here. So the cool thing about this one, the reason why I wanted to do this one with you is that it's just tangent to the x-axis. So remember, if it's tangent to the x-axis, there are always 2 roots there, or 2 zeros, okay? And it usually is your vertex as well. So I'm like, that's cool. I could do either one with this one again. So I'm going to do the zeros format first. Now, when I plug this in, y equals a, x minus box, x minus box, this point right here is -1, 0. Okay? So if I throw a -1 in here, I get y equals a x plus 1, x plus 1. Again, I'm almost done. I know a opens upward, so I know it's going to be positive, so I have to pick another point. So the other point I picked was this one right here, was the 0.01, just because it was close by and I knew it'd be easier. But you could kind of pick anything that was on one of these dots, but that looked like a good one. So I have y is 1 equals a, 0 plus 1, 0 plus 1. So 1 times 1 is 2, all right? So I have, excuse me, this is 1 times 1. What am I talking about? This is a 1 here, this is a 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so it's 1a, divide by 1, a is 1. So my parabola is y equals, I don't really need the 1, but we'll stick it there. A is 1, x plus 1, and I'm going to write it like this, x plus 1 squared. You could get rid of the 1 as well. You don't really need it. Now watch how you do the vertex. The vertex will actually come out to be kind of the same. So let's try the vertex formula. All right, so I have y equals a x minus h squared plus k. And then I'm going to plug in the vertex, which is -1, 0. So the -1 is going to go here, 0 goes there. So I end up with y equals a x plus 1 squared. Like, I've seen that before because I don't need to say plus 0. Now I'm going to plug in the 0.01. 1 equals a, 0 plus 1 squared. So that's 1a. 1 equals 1a. A equals 1. So you end up with the exact same thing. And you don't really need to write that 1 again. So I just wanted to refresh your memory. We did that in class last week, and I wanted to make sure you guys were able to see it. So sometimes you have to pick one or the other, but in this case, we had all the information to pick either one. Do you have to do both on all of them? No, not at all, but I just wanted to show you how to do both. So if you chose to do that, you could. All right. The other thing I did too this morning is I wanted to show you that you can graph these. And if you want to make sure, like I picked the first one, if you do Control T and bring up your table, you can check to see are the points there. I mean, it's an easy thing to check when you're doing these. So make sure that you check them as you go along. I did the same with the second one. All right. All right, so the next one I want to do is number 9. So I'm going back here to number 9. And I actually did this in class as well and did a video. So basically they're saying, what is the turning point or vertex axis of symmetry of the parabola whose equation is 3x squared plus 6x minus 1? What is the y-intercept in zeros and roots, and draw a sketch? So the first thing I'm going to do is just let's do all the work. We can check it on our calculator. So I have y equals, ready, 3x squared plus 6x minus 1. Now the first thing is I'm going to get everything all set up. So I'm going to do the y-intercept first because that's the easiest one. And I'm going to set it all up. Then I have the vertex that I can find. Then I can find the axis of symmetry. Now remember, all of these two I can do by completing the square. And the last thing I'm going to do is do my zeros or my roots. Okay, so I have them all kind of listed over here on the side. So the first thing is, and you're going to have to do this on your quiz today, is complete the square. So the first thing I always do is make sure that there's a 1 in front of the x squared. So I'm going to factor out the 3. So I have x squared. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Oh, that's nice. On your quiz, there's going to be some fractions, guys, just warning you. And then -1 divided by 3 is -1/3. All right. Now, right here, I'm going to force it to do a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to square it. Right. So this is what I'm going to do is I take the variable and half the middle. That's a nice number. Whatever this number is here, you square it and subtract it because that's what you've added. If it was a fraction, you square the top and the bottom and you subtract it. But you always subtract it because you're always adding it no matter what. And then bring down the -1/3. So this is just a refresher because I wanted to at least do one before you took your quiz. So 3, big bracket, I have x plus 1 squared. And when I put -1 and -1/3 together, I get -4/3. Now I'm going to distribute the 3. Now remember, when you distribute the 3 in front of the parabola, the parentheses, you just throw it in front. And 3 times -4/3 is going to be -4. So I know the vertex, just from what I did, and we're going to check this out, is going to be -1, -4, because remember, it's the opposite sign in there. And my axis of symmetry is going to be x equals -1. Now I got all excited to complete the square. The y-intercept is like the easiest thing ever because it's 0, a number, and you don't really have to show me plugging that in. But if I put a 0 here for x, put a 0 here for this x, my y-intercept would be 0, -1. So I think that's easy one right there to do, and you don't have to show me how you plugged it in. I'm just happy with you knowing that that's what it would be. Now the 0. So these two right here, the vertex and axis of symmetry, you have to complete the square to show the algebra. The zeros is we're going to take that same thing we had earlier, and we can do the quadratic formula, or we can factor it. In this case, we're going to actually use the quadratic formula. Stack and rack. A is 3, B is 6, C is -1, D is B squared, that's 36, minus 4 times A times -1. When I put that in my calculator, I get a 48, right? So I'm glad I did the quadratic formula because that's not a perfect square. So I do x equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, the 48 all over 2a6. So I'm going to split it up, plus and minus, and I want you to be able to simplify this. So I guess I'm not going to split it up yet. I'm going to simplify it first. So you can find all the factors using the factor button. I do know 48 is 16 times 3. So that can come out as a 4. So I have x equals -6 plus or minus 4 radical 3 all over 6. And this part right here kind of confuses everybody because they're like, how do I divide everything? How do I pick? I said, well, you got to pick the greatest common factor of all that. And everything gets divided by a 2. I can't divide them by a 4. I can't divide them by a 3. So I'm going to divide them all by a 2. So 2 goes in there twice, 2 goes in there 3, 2 goes in there 3. So I have x equals -3 plus or minus 2 radical 3 all over 3. So if I were to split this up, but those are my zeros or my roots, I'm going to let you write it just like that. Okay. And then on your quiz, when you do this next Monday, what you're going to do is actually sketch the graph and with a table and everything. So I'm not going to put that here, but you have plenty of room to do that. So please do that. So sketch your graph here, do your sketch, show all your work. Okay. I graphed it actually on the calculator. So here is 3x squared plus 6x minus 1. So again, I see that 0, -1 is my y-intercept. My vertex is -1, -4. And remember, you can always do your menu and analyze your graph. And if we did the minimum, and I come over here, see if I can do this here, good. Come over here, there's my -1, -4. And then if I wanted to know my zeros, I analyze the graph, and I want to know my zeros. So I click there, you're going to have to do this twice. Now I'm going to get a decimal, but I can check and see if that's the same thing what I got. Analyze graph, zeros. So I have, it's hard to see these, those are my 2 zeros. You can actually plug those in your calculator, what you came up with those radicals, and see if it's the same thing, because you can easily check everything. So that's all I was going to do today before your quiz. So hang on a second while I stop the video first.